I stood in front of what used to be my family's home, except now it was just a pile of rubble, crushed bricks, splintered wood, dust rising in the air like smoke from a fresh wound. And there, on a plastic sign staked into the ground, were the words, "Future Site of the Karen Blaine Community Center." I never signed off on anything. I never agreed to a demolition. But Karen, blazer, clipboard, smug little smile, looked me straight in the face and said, "You don't need to." If you've ever been pushed aside, shut down, or humiliated by people who thought their power gave them permission, you know what this feels like. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more real stories like this. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been bullied by an HOA, targeted for who you are, or had to fight just to be heard? My name's Marcus Reed. I'm a history professor, born and raised in Chicago. I don't come from wealth, but I come from legacy. When my grandmother passed, she left me her house in Oak Ridge Estates, an old two-story colonial with chipped paint and a sagging porch. But to me, it was sacred ground. 4 generations of my family had called it home. It was the first place my great-grandfather bought after the Civil Rights Movement, and it meant everything. I didn't have the money to move in right away, so I did what I could. I paid the taxes, kept it legal, and worked like hell to save for the renovations. My wife Lena and I were living tight in the city with our daughter, but we believed in that house, in what it could be again. The first time I pulled into the neighborhood, I felt the air shift. Not just the quiet lawns and pastel shutters. No, it was colder than that. I got out of my car and saw 2 women walking dogs just stop. They stared. One pulled out her phone. She didn't even try to hide it. 20 minutes later, a cop car cruised up. Said there was a report about a suspicious male entering a vacant property. I told him I owned it, showed him the deed right there on my phone. He apologized and left, but that moment never left me. The next morning, I got a letter from the HOA. Visible roof damage. Grass exceeding community standards. Potential violation of aesthetic compliance. It was dated the day I arrived. That's when I met her. Karen Blaine, HOA president, self-appointed protector of the Oak Ridge brand. She pulled up in her Lexus, stepped out like she was running for office, and looked me dead in the eye. "I thought you were with the plumbing crew," she said. "Nope," I replied. "I'm the owner." She smiled like that made it worse. "Well, Mr. Reed, we take pride in keeping things orderly here. We don't let properties decline." She handed me a printed copy of the HOA bylaws, underlined in red ink. I thanked her and got in my car. She stood there watching until I drove off. Every visit after that came with more letters. Noise complaints when I played Coltrane through my phone. A notice about my non-compliant vehicle because I parked my black Ford near the curb. Once, someone slipped an anonymous note into my mailbox that read, "This neighborhood has a history worth protecting. Don't ruin it." I kept my head down, filed for the right permits, hired a contractor, got all my paperwork in order. The plan was to start renovations on a Monday morning. The Friday before, I called Lena and told her, "We're finally going to bring it back to life." Monday at 8:03 a.m. I got the call. "Mr. Reed," my contractor said, his voice low and shaky, "someone bulldozed the house." I thought it was a joke. "What?" "They showed up with trucks, said they were authorized by the HOA. It's all gone." I drove there like a man possessed. When I pulled up, all I saw was wreckage. My grandmother's porch swing, gone. The shutters she painted by hand, buried. The front steps, where my daughter took her first wobbly ones, crushed. And there, in the middle of it all, stood Karen. Clipboard, sunglasses, calm. "This property was in violation for over 12 months, she said. "We followed all necessary procedures." I asked who gave them permission. She handed me a demolition order, my name, my forged signature, and a stamped HOA approval. "You're going to want to speak to our legal team," she said, smiling like it was over. But it wasn't. I contacted Camille Brooks, a lawyer I'd heard speak once at a tenant rights forum. Black woman, sharp mind, no patience for bullies. I showed her the document. "That's not your signature," she said immediately. "And if what you're saying is true, this goes way beyond HOA abuse. This is fraud and likely racism." We started digging. Emails, meeting notes, county zoning amendments. Camille found that the HOA had pushed a quiet rezoning motion through 6 months after my grandmother died, absorbing her property into their jurisdiction. No public notice, no consent. Just a few friendly relationships in the zoning office. But it got worse. Camille uncovered internal HOA emails. One from Karen to a board member read, "Reed's place is low-hanging fruit. His kind doesn't usually have the resources to fight." Another, "The family hasn't been active on the property. It's the perfect site for our new community center." They didn't just want my house gone. They wanted to build over it. They even made flyers. The Karen Blaine Community Center. Photoshopped mock-ups. A launch date. They celebrated while my family's history sat in dust. Then came the intimidation. Someone placed rusted barrels labeled hazard on the edge of the property. An anonymous complaint to the sheriff's office said I was illegally storing chemicals. Sheriff came out, took one look, and said, "These weren't here last week." We documented everything. And when Camille called a former HOA board member to the stand during the trial, he admitted, under oath, that Karen regularly targeted homeowners she didn't think fit the image. The courtroom was packed. Karen tried to act composed, but when Camille read those emails out loud, her hands shook. When asked directly if she had authorized the demolition without my consent, she said, "I did what was best for the neighborhood." Camille didn't miss a beat. Did that neighborhood include Mr. Reed, or was he the exception? The jury didn't need long. Karen was found guilty. Fraud, forgery, trespassing, and civil rights violations. The HOA was hit with a judgment so heavy they had to liquidate assets. Karen was arrested in the courthouse hallway, still wearing that blazer. They called it a victory, but I didn't feel like celebrating. I stood on the dirt that used to be my grandmother's garden, held the last photo we had of her on that porch, and I just breathed. Later, we rebuilt. Same footprint, same porch swing, same shutters. This time, Maya helped paint them. That mattered. And the banner they'd printed, the one for the Karen Blaine Community Center, we framed it, hung it in our new living room, as a reminder of what almost happened and what didn't. See, people think racism always looks like shouting or burning crosses, but sometimes it comes in the form of policies, paperwork, smiles that don't reach the eyes, and rules that aren't written, but always enforced. They tried to erase us quietly, but we're still here. If you've ever been excluded, harassed, or silenced just because of your skin color or background, share your story in the comments. Sometimes, justice starts with someone brave enough to speak up.